Hello friends, welcome to CodeBode. So after data types, variables and operators, now we'll go with conditional statements in Java. The first being most widely used if-else statements. So let's get started with the video. So whenever we want to test and execute multiple conditions in the program, mostly if-else statements come into picture. So in this video, we are going to see if statements, then if-else. We'll also see if, elseif and else, and then the nested if statements. So let's get started. For the sake of this video, we'll take input from the user. So using scanner, we'll do that. Then we'll take the input in a variable number equal to sc.next int. So before the number as input, let's print one statement. Please enter a number. Okay, so now let's see how if statement works in Java. So we are going to see an example where we are going to see if the number is positive, we'll print it as positive using if statement. So for sake of that, let's take a Boolean variable is positive. First we'll assign it the value of false, and if the number is positive, then we'll assign it as true. So let's see how we can do it. So we want to test the condition if the number is positive. So we'll write as if, because we are going to say if the condition is true, then execute the next line. So if, then in brackets we mention the condition that we want to check. Here we want to check if number is positive, that is greater than 0. So we will write the condition inside brackets, and then inside braces we will write the code that we want to execute if the number is positive. So we'll say sysout number is positive, and if it is positive equal to true. And at the end of the if statement, we'll print one more line, that is value of is positive. So if this condition is true, then only these two lines will be executed. Otherwise, the compiler will move straight to this particular line. So with the help of debugger, we are going to see how the compiler executes if statement. So I'll place a debugger here, and let's debug this program and see how the output is evaluated. So here, if we enter number, we'll enter a positive number first. So let's say 9. Now we have our debugger here. The value of number is 9. And this condition, number greater than 0, if I do Ctrl+Shift+I, it is true. So the compiler, if I do F6, the compiler will move to the next line, that is inside the condition. So the compiler has moved to number is positive line, and if I do F6, it is printed that number is positive. Is positive is false here, and if I move to next line, is positive is going to be true. So it should print true. So we'll terminate the program now. So in this way, if statements work. We write if keyword, then the condition, and inside the braces, we write the statements that we want to execute if the condition is true. Only if the condition is true. Now again, let's debug the program for negative input. So now we'll enter negative input. Let's say -9. And here our number is -9. And this condition, I'm doing Ctrl+Shift+I, is false. So the compiler will not move, or the debugger will not move inside the block. So if I do F6, the debugger has directly moved to printing is positive. So now is positive itself here is false. So let's go to the next step, and it has printed false. So in this way, if works. Now what if I want to do something if the number is negative? I'll write it in the else block. So whenever you want to execute two conditions, you do it in if and else. If only one condition is to be tested, you can simply write only if. For two conditions, we write if else. So if this condition is false, then what we want to do, we write in else statement. So let's print number is negative. And we have already given is positive the value of false, but here also we'll again make it as false for sake of understanding. So now let's see how debugger works here. So we'll give number as -7. So here number is -7 and this condition is going to be false. So it should go to else statement. So now it has gone inside else directly without executing the if part or the code inside the if part. So now it will print the number is negative and is positive is assigned the value of false. So in this way if else works. You can ignore this for now. It is because of the debugger. I hope you understood how if else works. Let's see one more example with if else. So we'll simply remove the code for positive and negative. And let's check how to do the same thing for odd and even statements. So in if, I'll write the condition for even. So we are going to check if the number is divisible by 2. So number mod 2 equal to 0. If this condition is true, that is number is divisible by 2, that is when number is divided by 2, if the remainder is 0, then we are going to print number is even. Else, we are going to print number is odd. And let's run the program now. So if I enter an even number, let's say 80, it has printed that the number is even. And if I enter an odd number, let's say 77, it will print that number is odd. So in this way, you can check multiple conditions such as even, odd, positive, negative, etc. using if-else statements. Now we will see one more example where we'll be checking the range of the numbers. So if the number lies between 1 to 10 or 10 to 20, etc. Check that. Let's say the first condition will check if number is between 1 to 10. So number greater than equal to 1 and because we want both the conditions to be checked, number less than equal to 10. We'll say number lies between 1 to 10. Else we'll say number is greater than 10. So in this way we can check two conditions. But what if we want to check multiple conditions, such as if number lies between 1 to 10 or 20 to 30 or 30 to 40, etc. We'll do it using else if statements. So let's see how. So the first condition is checking whether number is between 1 to 10. We'll write the second condition for 10 to 20 using else if. So we write as else if, then the condition is equal to 20. Again we can write one more else if for 20 to 30. So we'll simply copy this greater than 20 and less than equal to 30. And here number lies between 10 to 20 lies between 20 to 30. So you can add as many conditions as you want. I'll write again for 30 to 40, and if all these conditions are not matched, for example if the number is greater than 40, then we'll write a else statement. That is, for all other numbers which do not satisfy all this condition, we'll say number is greater than 40. So in this way, if number lies between 1 to 10, this block will be executed. If this condition is false, it will go to the next condition. Again, if this condition is false, it will execute next condition. But if this condition is true, it will directly jump to the last statement. In the last, let's print end. So it will directly jump to line number 31. So in this way, if else if works. So let's check. I place a debugger here and debug as So first we'll enter number between 1 to 10, that is 8. So here our number is 8 and this condition is going to be true because both the conditions are true. So our debugger will move inside this statement and print number lies between 1 to 10. Now since this condition is true, after I press F6, it will directly jump to the last statement, that is line number 31. No need to check the other condition because we have written else if. And only if this condition fails or it is false, then it will move to next else statements. So here it has directly gone to line number 31, that is end. Now let's check for one more condition. We'll check for number between 20 to 30. So debug as Java application. And if I enter a number 25, so here number is 25 and this condition is going to be false because both the conditions are false. So it will move to next else if. Again, if we check this condition, it is false. So it won't go inside this else if as well. It will directly jump to the third else if. Now this condition is true. So it will move to this else if. And since now we have one condition true, it will directly jump to the last statement. In this way, it works for multiple else if statements. So I hope you understood how else if works. Now we'll see the last part, that is nested if statements. So I'll remove this code and see how nested ifs work. So nested ifs are basically ifs inside if. So for example, here we'll test the greatest among the three numbers. So we'll take three numbers as the input. So I'll say here int number 1 and number 2 and number 3. So if I want to check greatest among the two numbers, we'll first check how we do it for two numbers and then we'll check for three numbers. So if number 1 is greater than number 2, else. So if number 1 is greater, we are going to print number 1 is greater than number 2. Otherwise, number 2 is greater than number 1. So in this way, we can check for two numbers. Let's run this. So before this, let's add statements before number 2 and number 3 as well. So number 1, then we'll take number 2 and then number 3. So for this program, we don't need number 3 here. So let's comment it for time being. And let's run this program. So I'll enter number 1 equal to 50 and number 2 equal to 100. Now since number 2 is greater, the else part should execute. So it has given number 2 is greater than number 1. Now what if we want to check three conditions? So first we'll check number 1 is greater than number 2. If number 1 is greater, we will check number 1 with number 3. Because already number 1 is greater. So we'll remove this and check again. Inside if we'll write one more if. So if number 1 is greater, we want to check if it is greater than number 3. Number 1 greater than number 3. So sys out number 1 is greatest. We'll uncomment number 3 part here. Else we'll print number 3 is greatest. Otherwise, if number 1 is not greater than number 2, then number 2 is greater, then obviously the number 1 is smaller than number 3. So in this else statement, we'll again write if else statements. So we'll check number 2 greater than number 3, then number 2 is greatest, else number 3 is greatest. So in this way, you can write if else within if else. This is called nested ifs. So let's run. So I'll enter number 1 as 100, number 2 as 200 and number 3 as 300. So here number 1 is 100, number 2 is 200. So it will go directly to else part. Now number 2 is 200, number 3 is 300. So it will go inside this else and print number 3 is greatest. So in this way you can check multiple conditions with nested ifs. So this was about if-else statements, guys. In the next video we'll learn about switch statements in Java. So stay tuned and subscribe to our channel, and also like and share this video.